now the middle of July, and as you can see the weather is stunning. We've had rain relentless really since the plants have been in the ground. We're returning to the plant that we saw earlier being stopped, or the top being cut out of it, which is the Alf Ramsey, the giant decorative. And it's about now that we're starting to take these down to the flowering shoots. We're on the exhibition plot. There isn't a lot really with the garden stuff, that's just going to be coming through and flowering as and when it does. So now we're just taking them down to flowering numbers, and hopefully we'll be keeping those there until we get some buds, and then we can secure those buds later on. Right, so here's the plant. As I say, it's the same plant that we've seen chopped back or stopped probably 3 weeks ago now, 3 to 4 weeks. And these are the shoots that it's developed. There's 5 shoots there. Now quite luckily we didn't want lots of shoots from that. We've got enough and we've got choice. As you can see, there's some larger, stronger shoots on this plant, there, and there. And then at the front of the plant there's a couple of smaller ones. Now they're no weaker, they're probably just younger shoots. Middle of July, I'm looking for buds on this variety in about 2 weeks time, and we're expecting 12 to 14 inch flowers. So there's no point going for the weak shoots or the younger shoots, because we want some power in them and we want them to hold the flowers. So that one, and that one here will be the ones that we're keeping. These two we'll be removing. Now if this was a medium, then we'd be looking for about 6 to 8 shoots to flower. Same on a small, mostly nearer the 8 shoots. And the miniatures, then we're being double figures. But as a giant deck, we only want 3 flowers, so we're going to remove the weaker 2 and leave those in there. Now I'm not going to cut the shoots, I will tear the shoots from low down, so we're not leaving any leaf joints down there to shoot again later, because that's just going to create more work, and with 860 plants I don't like doing things twice. Right, so we're ready to take these off. Try to hold the plant or the stem low down where you're tearing it. That way you know you've got control of that and you're not going to start pulling one of these others off at the same time. Do give it a wobble and make sure you've got hold of the right one, because it does happen. And we just push it down and take the plant away. So that's removed, and you quite often get a heel on the end there, but at least you know you've got it all. So that's that one gone. And then we're going to come into the side here and take this one away. And again, just push down and it'll come out from the leaf joint that's left. And that's done. So there's nothing much wrong with those, but these are better. So it leaves us with 3 stems, nicely spaced around the area, the growing area, so the blooms, when they come out, shouldn't collide. And then what we do then, before the wind comes and gets in the middle of the plant and possibly wipes these out, it's just to put a string tie around the perimeter of these canes. Just use normal tomato twine. I've learnt to do a clove hitch. Slide it down the front left hand cane, and it's always the front left for me, mainly so when I come to take the canes out, I know that I always cut the knot on the left hand cane and the rest will just fall off. So just loop round the canes so that it doesn't slide down under the leaves, and then just tie off again back to where we started. We're not bunching the plant up, we're just providing support so that these stems can't splay out further than the perimeter of the string. Now they're growing quick now, so it won't be very long before the plant will be up here and up here. And I shall probably add further ties about halfway up the cane, and again one near the top once the blooms are out, just to provide support for those. So we've just been taking the plants down to flowering numbers. This is a plant that we've already done that to, and what we've got is 4 lovely buds in the 4 shoots that we've left. This is a large decorative, so we're flowering 4. Problem being is we're still in the middle of July. Now this is probably the most technical bit about getting flowers to the show, is the timing of the buds. So with these sort of pea-sized buds on a large deck, certainly in the south of the country, we're expecting those to be a full-blown flower in about 27 days, give or take a day or two for weather variances. Now if that's a giant, we'd be looking at 30 days, a medium would be about 25 to 27, smalls about 23 to 25, miniatures about 21 to 23. So the technical part there is getting a calendar, looking at the show that you expect the flowers to be at and counting back. Our first show is likely to be the August bank holiday, which is about the 24th this year. So I would look to secure a bud of this size about the 28th of July. So we're about 2 weeks too early. And there's ways and means then of dealing with this, and that's what we're going to look at now. So we're looking at the stem here. We've got 4 stems on the plant, all got buds. We are in the middle of July. This is slightly larger than a pea bud that we call it, but it's a bud nonetheless. Either side of the bud there's usually 2 wing buds. This one's only actually got 1, which is there. Now in timing wise, on what this is being a large deck, I'd expect this to be a full flower in about 28 days time. As I say, we are in the middle of July, and I don't really want a bud until the very end of July for an August bank holiday show. The show's further on, so if we delay it a little bit more than that, it's not going to hurt. But this is how we do it. So we've got the main bud here and the wing bud next to it. That's about 3 days behind that. So if we wanted to delay flowering for 3 days, we could remove the main crown bud and flower the side bud. It tends not to be a good idea, that slight, because it's not getting enough time to get any development into it. So I'm more likely to go further down the plant to these side shoots here. Now as you can see, this one is larger than that, and that's about a week behind here. So if you wanted to gain a week, we can leave that shoot. If you wanted to gain about 8 or 9 days, then maybe we'll leave that shoot. But I don't want to bud until the end, so we get delaying by 2 weeks, which is really the next pair of leaves down. And again, it's normally the left hand shoot is the earliest, and the right is slightly behind, and there's about 2 to 3 days, or maybe 2 days between them. So this is the one that we're going to leave. I'm hoping that will produce a bud in about 2 weeks time. Now to do that, we're going to need to remove this stem about here, remove all this upper growth, and then take all the side shoots other than the one that we're keeping off of this plant. That will divert all the energy that's coming up this stem to the shoot that we're leaving, and within a week you wouldn't really notice that we've done this, and this will produce a bud in about 2 weeks time and a sensible flower on the top of it. Some people feel that maybe a small amount of size is lost by doing this. I think if it's done early enough and hard enough, it's minimal, and it's better to have a slightly smaller flower at a show than to have a nice flower 2-3 weeks before there's any shows to take it to. So that's the knockback method, as it's called, because we're knocking back the shoots down the stem to get the timing that we're looking for. So we're going to do that to this stem and show that and how it's done. So we're going to knock this shoot back. Now, as I say, this is what's classed as a crown bud. By going to here, we're going to gain about 3 days. So we've just purely removed that there. Now, so we're trying to gain 2 weeks here, so that's not going to do us any favours. So we need to remove this stem, and again, always work down the plant, never up, and we just remove that shoot there. That's that gone. So we've already taken this back now by a week if we left one of these. Now I don't want to leave it a week, which would be that. We need to go further down. So you can either remove that, if you're a bit weary about knocking the shoots about, you can leave the top stem on and just side shoot further down, but I tend to prefer to chunk it down. So we're going to remove this stem here, which should leave the one that we've been waiting to get to, this one here, which should have a bud in about 2 weeks. So I'm growing my thumb now especially for this. We just push through and remove that stem. So we've now delayed that shoot by 2 weeks, or at least 2 weeks. And we've got these two here. I would tend to keep the larger one because it's only going to delay it even further. So we're going to remove the small side shoot there, and that just comes out and leaves the joint nice and clean. And then further down the plant, you don't want any other shoots to develop, so I will just simply side shoot further down, and there's probably only about 4 down there. There's another one there just hiding away, and we just remove that. So all that we are left with on this stem now is the shoot that we decided was going to be budding in a couple of weeks time, and nothing else. So that stem's now knocked back, and we've delayed at least 2 weeks. So we're going to use the same plant now to secure a bud. Remembering this is a large deck, so we're looking at 28 days before the show. So ideally we'll be doing this at the very end of this month, being July. We're still in the middle of July, but to illustrate this we're going to do it anyway. Now 28 days wants to be at least the end of the month. Remember, the show season is normally a couple of weeks, so any time after that is fine, up until 3 weeks into August, in fact, because obviously the show's going into mid-late September. But we're going to side shoot this bud. Just remember, once that's done, there's no going back. We're removing all shoots from the stem other than the bud in which we're going to flower. And it would be the same process if this was a stem that we'd previously knocked back and the shoot that we've left has now developed a bud. You still remove all other shoots other from the bud that you're going to flower. So we'll do that now. Right, so this shoot here, we're going to secure the bud. That's about a pea-sized bud for a large. And as you can see, we've got 2 wing buds left and right of this, and there's further shoots down the stem. So to secure the bud, we remove the side shoots like that, and hopefully just by pulling down, they break cleanly. Never pull them up or sidewards, because what can happen is you get a tear on the stem, and that will run all the way up the stem to the bud, and quite often that, as this develops, it will scar, a bit scab basically, like you would on your hat if you cut yourself, and that can draw the bud over and mean you don't get a straight stem on the plant. So always pull down. We're going to remove this one on this side, just pulling down, and a little add-on bit there that can stay there, rather that than damage taking it off. And then further down here we've got another pair, and we remove those, one there and one there, and you continue all the way down the stem. Quite often they're not developed further down, so you can't do that at this stage, and it would mean a second pass perhaps in a week or two's time, and making sure that all side shoots have been removed from this plant, so that again all the energy from the roots is coming up these 4 stems and only supplying the 4 buds in which we've got here. So that's taking the buds, securing stems, taking the plants down to numbers, and obviously putting the first tie on the plants. Now moving on for the next couple of weeks, we're just going to continue that with the plants, making sure that they're taken down to the flowering numbers, that they've all got a secure tie on them just in case the weather does turn. We'll be still feeding now the balanced feed throughout, which at the moment is just Miracle Grow standard feed, and then moving on at the very end of the month into August using Tomrite or high potash feed. I have put some sulphate of potash down on top of the straw. With all this rain that we're still getting and is happening now, that will wash into the ground, and that will help on the weaker stemmed varieties. Obviously we continue to spray to keep the earwigs and any aphids that are about in check. The slugs are becoming less of a problem now, the plants are growing away strongly. So hopefully we're just protecting the stems and helping them on their way to producing flowers for the August bank holiday onwards. Well, as you can see by the surroundings, we've moved on a little from the last time you've seen the plants. We've been side shooting, feeding with a potash feed throughout. We're now in the end of August and the flowers are here to see. First show's coming up, so we're now in a process where we're selecting the flowers to take to the show. There's one or two problems that always arise during the process, and that is flowers that come out before. We've got to deadhead them, or traditionally you would deadhead them. With these, this is Susan Marsden. You can see that the size of the flower is actually too large. This is a miniature ring and a miniature flower. Now, instead of taking this flower off completely, I tend